So now we are moving into short answer. So again, looking at those 6 levels of Bloom's taxonomy, when we're getting into short answer, this is where you're putting your own words and your own thoughts on the paper. Which means we can now assess all 6 levels of Bloom's taxonomy. You don't often see short answer used these days for the super low levels because those can be easily machine scored unless what the teacher's looking for is, a really in-depth knowledge. So they could take what would be a fill in the blanks and make it a short answer by simply not giving you a word list to pick from and ensuring that you're coming in with that vocabulary in your head and you're not figuring it out based on what's on the page. That doesn't make it Bloom's level 5 because you're not creating the words, you're just recalling it and recognizing where they fit. But this is now much more commonly used when we're getting into assessing these top 2 levels. These are the ones where different students can have different answers and both be correct because it's about illustrating a thought process that provides evidence of understanding of the concept. Now, short answers don't tend to push all the way to level 6. Those we tend to go with the long answer or the essay response. Short answer are probably more common in levels 3 to 5. So these are ones where it can be, at the higher level where you're creating. It can also be a recall when they're just trying to give you fewer hints than you would get in, say, multiple choice. So anytime you're dealing with short answer or written response, you want to make sure that your spelling and grammar are strong, because the last thing you want is to lose marks just because you were rushed and missed a letter. It happens to all of us. As you're watching me do these videos, you probably noticed that when I'm rushing, I'm thinking of one word and saying one word and writing another. I will miss letters or skip letters. That's what humans do, but then I have to go back and insert them. So you need to check and verify. You also want to make sure that you have a complete thought. So you don't want to just start writing and see what comes out in most cases. What you want to do is formulate your thought first. So when you put pen to paper, you've got a complete and coherent thought. And you also want to go through and ask yourself, what are the options or the key terms? So if you're doing a short answer test, especially one that's teacher created where the questions come in a particular order, they are often organized in a particular flow of ideas or themes as you're going through the unit. So you want to ask yourself, does the question order match the order that we learned the topics in class? If so, where are we in that sequence? What sort of topics were we talking about and discussing? What are the key ideas or themes that really mattered at this point in our in-class discussion? Which of these ideas and themes do we need to make sure we put into these answers? What is it exactly that the teacher is hoping that we can come up with? So we'll talk a little bit more on day 5 about how to prepare for these as you're studying. But for now, as you're doing the short answer, you want to put the ideas and themes there. You also want to ask yourself, you would know your penmanship. You know how large or small you write compared to others. And you know how large or small your teacher writes and what the expectations are. So after a while, you will get a feel for how to gauge how much detail your teacher is looking for based on how much space they gave you to answer. So if you've got just 2 lines of text, your teacher's probably looking for 1, maybe 2 sentences. They're not looking for 8 paragraphs. But if you've got 15 lines of text, this probably isn't a short answer question. This is probably a long answer or an essay answer question. because that's indicative that there's more detail coming. So you don't necessarily want to just fill the space because there's space there, because that can lead to random babbling, which gives the teacher the impression that you don't know what you're talking about and you're just kind of firing a shotgun in the dark and hoping you hit something. You want to make sure that you're using a decent amount of the space, but unless you write very, very large, you should not expect to use all the space, because your teachers will account for the fact that a lot of your classmates will need that space to write. So you do want to get a feel for how much space it is. Good rule of thumb, if you use as much space to write as most of your classmates, if you use average size writing, the answer your teacher is looking for is probably going to be 75 to 80% of the space you're provided to give that answer. There are some teachers who will deliberately give much more space than that just to try to trap people into babbling. So you will want to kind of gauge your teacher. Sometimes it's hard to do on the first test of the year. But as the year goes on, keep your tests, go through them, make sure you understand what your teacher was looking for in those answers, and start comparing it to the sizes you were given and see how well things fit.